You're listening to this week's edition of Behind the Barn Door. Join us as we find our stride of purpose and inspiration in community, coming together, and championing one another's unique gifts and dreams. Enjoy the conversation, and we'll see you at the ring. Well, welcome Dr. Pernilla Nathan to Behind the Stall Door. I've been really looking forward to chatting with you and connecting about your work and also just our shared passion for all things horses and sort of taking this personal development, internal work into how it relates to our horse journey. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I am really excited to talk with you because you've developed a beautiful brand, one that I think is truly the epitome of a lifestyle, not just equestrianism, if that's even a word.
It is now.
So yes. So thanks. Yeah, I'm excited.
Well, to kick us off, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and what it is that you do, because we've chatted before and I've also just read a lot about your work, but I'd love for you to kind of tell the audience what it is that you do.
Yeah. So my work is ever evolving, and it's really just neuroscience about performance and coaching with females. So I have juniors to adult equestrians, and then I also work with entrepreneurs. And now my niche is expanding to women who want to find their other person. And all that connects because it's really about how we perceive the world, how we relate to the world through our heart, our brain. And so I integrate science and really help people understand how they can take their brains, their minds to the next level so that they create a more a performance enhancing lifestyle, I guess. Mm-hmm. So
yeah. And so would you say that like you kind of describe it as mindset? Because I do hear you talk a lot about heart and soul. And so I'm curious how that sort of fits in, because when I hear someone say mindset, and I imagine when other people hear that, they're thinking more like thought patterns and shifting those kinds of things. But when you are talking about integrating heart and soul into that, how would you describe mindset in the way that you work and look at it?
Well, I love that you asked that question because I feel like I really need to do a rebrand on my services. Because so much of it is, so mindset is really just like this blanket word that people have used and are continuously using it. But really at the core of a lot of who we are comes from our heart. Our heart has intelligence. It actually has more intelligence than our brain does. And our gut also has a brain and it has intelligence as well. And so I got really curious about all of that after I got my degree in clinical psychology, got my doctorate, my master's. And things just weren't working for me very well, even though I had done therapy, started a nonprofit, and I still had, still had a dream, like just fatigue and all these other symptoms, and not elevating to the lifestyle I really wanted, my dream lifestyle. So anyways, I did all this research. And so I integrate all of that. I do talk about it as mindset initially to introduce people, but when they start working with me, they do see the heart and soul. And I think they then start realizing like that's how you can really start living a more just flavorful life, like a more dream-centered, flavorful life, because we're taught that we have to have this box. Mm-hmm. I was taught that, and I'm sure that. And that just cuts off our creativity. It cuts off our expansion. It cuts off just so much of what we can perceive and create. And so much of what we attract is actually not mindset. It's energy. It's the energy that we exude, the energy that we live in. And that's the piece that I try to help people understand and move into. So, and with horses, that's super, sorry, I love talking about this, but with horses,
yeah, I love it.
with horses, it's so integral. So if you only do your mindset work and only your thoughts, then you're missing out on your partner.
Right.
And
And
you're
they
not,
feel everything that's
yeah,
happening within us, whether we're feeling it or not.
yes, exactly. And they can like, I wrote a post about this because I thought it was so fascinating. If a stallion can smell a mare and heat a mile away, for sure they can smell our hormone levels, our
Mm.
cortisol, which is our stress hormone, even before we can.
Yeah.
So if we're not communicating energetically with ourselves, how can we communicate energetically with our horses and create that bond? Um, and not, not just to jump a certain height or to do certain dressage movements or to win certain classes in reining, whatever discipline you're in. It's, I think we all love this because of that connection, that depth.
Yeah. When you were talking about living a more flavorful life, I had chills, but it's what I kind of describe and experience as aliveness. And it's
Yes.
like, this is what it feels like to me. Like, I feel
Yes.
it more as a somatic experience. Um, but I love that, just kind of starting to explore. And I feel like that's so much of my mission, even though I'm a clothing designer, but it's like that's really the underbelly of what I hope people exude and start to feel while wearing the clothes. But for me, that's like a big drive for other people, and also the way that I make choices and try to integrate that into my life.
Well, I noticed that actually a lot with your brand. I was following you before we even were communicating and talking, and just like the colors, you were just so innovative beyond what we were so used to seeing with equestrian brands. The basic colors that are gorgeous, and there's a very classic style that's
Yeah.
been around for years, but you took it and like even with this shirt, there's like a touch and a feel and it's so comfortable. But the lace and the feminine colors that you chose, that's what drew me to your brand. And I think spoke to that other side of me that wasn't
Mm.
being represented in the saddle, but it's something that just even as I noticed when you do your reels too, just the things that you choose to talk about are not typical of a clothing brand. And it's so nice to see that because that's more realistic to me. They're more like life conversations.
Yeah. Well,
So
thank you for reflecting that back.
yeah.
Um, I'm curious. So, what would you say are maybe the top three things that you see sort of like getting in the way of people having what they really want? Because I've noticed there's a big, maybe over the last 2 years, there's a big shift toward manifestation and positive affirmations and those kinds of things, which is cool. But I wonder, like, to me, there's far more beyond that. So, what would you say maybe your top three things that I'm going to put in quotes, like get in the way of someone really having what they truly desire?
I think not having a gratitude practice, and I know that's also big right now. That's very trendy, but it's the truth.
Makes a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, and top, there's been so much research done about successful people, and there's uh, one of the research elements was that the gratitude brought so much humility at the same time. Like a lot of top athletes and entrepreneurs and successful people will talk about their gratitude practice. Um, And I think too, just the other thing is believing that it has to be done a certain way. So then what I see getting in the way is that someone will take on responsibility for an experience that is not theirs to
Mm.
take on. So what I mean by that is that they will self-blame instead of understanding that there was all these environmental components that contributed to a certain outcome. And when you take it from that perspective, then you want to then you are motivated to overcome it. But when you do the self-blame, which I don't know why, but society, I feel like, teaches us to that habit to keep us small. And so then so then the anxiety, the depression starts manifesting and showing itself. And I think too, the other thing, I think this one I'm debating between two things, but I think I'm going to just roll with this is money.
If you have two more, you're not limited to three, but
to keep the conversation is really money, like the scarcity mindset, like really thinking that they're not making enough. I mean, I have clients that are making like 3 times, 4 times what I'm making, just being honest. And scarcity mindset, they're a greater scarcity mindset than I am. And that will really trap you, and that will trap you in the saddle. That will keep you small in your lifestyle, in your arena, because then you don't place yourself at the right time, at the right place, and make the connections that would lead you to the next thing that would really inspire and delight you. So, yes.
Yeah, it's making me think of this. I mean, I'm curious. I have a very strong relationship with what I would call like fate or destiny. And so I'm curious if you sort of believe in that as a concept, and how this plays into how the mindset practice plays into that. And I guess what I mean by that is I experience it sort of like a dance with life. So what you were just talking about is if you have this scarcity mindset, or maybe it's the self-blame, and you're not placing yourself or allowing yourself to be placed into that right time, right scenario, and being able to see it. How do you see that sort of playing a part?
It's
that kind of concept of fate or destiny or personal responsibility. It's like there's so many components.
I think you're unique too, in that like you went and pursued your brand, and that is like considered so risky, or and I think that's where the fate and destiny, there's so much this idea of that it's so risky, or only a few people can actually achieve their fate and destiny, but it's not true. We're just so taught to unravel that piece of us through our education, as young as 10 years old, if not younger. And we start telling people, oh, that's childish, kids, oh, that's a childhood dream. I was told that. And I put all my marbles into becoming a psychologist. And then I graduated and I got super sick. I didn't have depression, but I had major burnout. And then it was through a divorce that I was like, okay. And I had other loss in my life, but it was kind of like, this was the last like straw, I think. And it was like, you're denying yourself, you're denying your heart, you're pulled in this direction for a reason. And we will never know the reason until we start like walking in that path,
Totally. Yeah.
And
you don't get to know before.
Yes, because
like, I guarantee you that this is how it's going to play out. It's like, got to take the step into that. It's like the unknown path in order to see. Yeah.
And you're supposed to unravel it like piece by piece. It's not like you just get this gift.
Done. I made it.
Yeah. And Paulo Coelho, who wrote that famous book, he recently just talked about how he wanted to become a writer, and his parents told him, no, you have to become a physician. And he started pursuing that, but he also got super sick. And then he started writing all these books. He wrote The Alchemist. And and now he's famous and he has all this abundance, and like he channels all these books, and it's just so incredible. And I think that's the other piece. So many of my clients are struggling with, because they don't understand, well, you're not walking your path. So of course you're not going to meet your person, or of course you're not going to find your horse, or of course you're not going to be riding at that level because you're boxing yourself over here. So
Yeah, it takes like a willingness to and courage to be
yeah.
like, okay, I'm gonna start. Just
Yes.
start. Yeah.
Yes. And we don't teach those skills in school, which is so crazy to me. So crazy. I
Mm-mm.
mean, everything I spent 10 years pursuing my degree. Everything I learned for what I do now was in between the time I decided I had enough and I learned, like, I just, like, for years afterwards, just like put my nose in the books and read all these books, mentored with all these people that were considered pop culture and therefore not qualified to have. And then also I studied, other avant-garde scientists and I mean, it's neuroscience. It's not like it's new. It's been around for a while. I just wasn't learning all this stuff. We were learning
Yeah.
how to do a traditional model of healing.
Yeah.
And so,
You said like when you had enough, and I'm imagining it was like a culmination of misaligned
yes.
things that maybe once were aligned that were no longer aligned with where you were. I had something very similar, um, where I also went through a divorce, and it was like my whole life kind of needed to fall apart uh,
Mhm.
in order to really get on that path. Do you think that that is common? Like, do you see that, especially for women? Do you see that happen a lot where, mm, maybe we're living a life that it it's great in a lot of ways, or it checks the boxes in a lot of ways, or it looks really good in a lot of ways, and there's something inside that's like there's an ache or a longing. Do you see that there's a lot of times it needs to sort of completely fall apart in
Mhm.
order to step into that? Or do you see people being able to really, I would say, easier? I don't know if easy is the goal, but that, just I feel like maybe our experiences were similar,
I
in
think,
getting onto our path.
yeah, I think what you're really asking is, like, do you have to have such an intense trauma experience, or can you find your destiny, your fate through just life experience before you have to, like, endure, rock bottom? Yes, you can, but we don't for a reason. I think because, well, there's a lot of, like, psychological principles with it, like, so involved. And that is, there's this one idea, and I forget the name of the theory, but you're more likely to stay in something because you've already invested in it. And even if you know that over here reaps better rewards,
Mm,
um, just you're going to just try and hope that the same rewards can come over here. And yeah, I think a lot, the juniors to come to me, like, the parents are more protective, so they come before something like that happens.
right.
uh, but the adults, my females, yeah, it's always when finally they've hit this place of true heartache and they've had enough of that lifestyle. And
Mm,
that's almost harder for me to work with. And that's why I tailored my services the way I did. Because now it's so ingrained, like, habitually, like, your brain will fire and want that same experience over and over again, even if it doesn't serve you, even if it doesn't feel good. So that's probably why we stayed longer, or we did what we did longer. And then the moment you change, even if it's for your benefit, your brain is going to freak out. It's going to be like, but I don't know this world. I don't know this pattern. And it's just a survival mechanism. It's literally just a machine. It's just a response. So it's not even I try to tell them, I'm like, it's not a personality thing. This is like your brain doing its thing. So
Yeah.
you know, but I wish I had known that. I didn't know that. I wish I had known that when I was going through my stuff. But yes, I think there's something about when you hit that level of pain, you also release a lot, and there's nothing. Now you're at a place where there's nothing to lose. So why not?
Yeah, there's a sense of like freedom and liberation in
Yes.
that when it's like, okay, I'm gonna I mean, I internally I have no other choice but to let go, whether my brain wants to hold on or not. It's like when you get to that point of almost acceptance, um,
Well, it
or
was like,
fed upness
yes.
with just the feeling, not even maybe the external scenarios, but it's like I cannot continue to live feeling this way. And so I give in.
Yeah, and I mean, talking about destiny and fate, and I'm sure you believe this too. Like, I think the universe keeps sending us lessons and lessons, and then I think by that time we have seen the lesson maybe already 3 or 4 times.
I was going to say it's more
Yeah,
maybe slight spiral up, but it's often how many times do we have to revisit the same lesson
yeah.
before we're ready to
Take it.
shift?
Yep. Yep. Step out of that circle.
Yeah, totally. Oh my gosh, it's so hard though, and it's so it can be so
It's
heartbreaking,
it is,
you
and
know?
people, yeah, it is. And people take it really personally. And that's where I try to jump in and be
Mm,
like, grace, first of all. Second of all, no, you can't take it personally too. Cause I think a lot of it too, I'm a big social perspectives person too. I did a lot of that studying or in my studies. And so, because it's so easy to blame ourselves, but societally, there's just these constructs these ideas that we um, buy into, maybe not intentionally and maybe not voluntarily, but they start we start on that program
yeah,
or like,
early.
yeah, like why do we have to work 5 days a week? Why do we have to go to school five
Sure.
days? Who created that? Let's talk about
Yeah,
that.
totally.
Is that good for performance? No.
No. Is it good for my happiness? Also, no.
So, small
Oh,
things like that I'll point out and people will be like, oh yeah. And I'm like, why do you get a paycheck every 2 weeks? Why aren't you getting a paycheck like every, money every few days or something? And it's so weird because when you look at the research about how people perform and how they get motivated, they have to receive money pretty frequently. So
mm-hmm.
2 week, 2 week or the monthly
You're
or the
like,
salary,
yeah,
it's,
quarterly.
yeah, that
Like,
too.
oh,
Yeah.
I think a lot of that ties into the conditioning of success
Hmm.
and what does that actually look like? Because I think what it looks and feels like is much different than what we've been sort of sold.
Yes.
I'm curious, what would you just like? How would you define success, or what would that mean to you or for your clients?
I mean, for me, success is living my dream life, but that doesn't mean challenges aren't going to happen. It just
Mm-hmm.
means that I can get through them faster and with greater ease. Um, and with that, that means like more, I think success with a just one word to epitomize success would be freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Like we want more money because we want more freedom. We want more of this, but all of that can be created in so many different ways. Freedom can be created like we want more time to ride our horses. We want more time to create our or go out to lunch and see our friends and whatever it is. But so when clients come to me, they'll say to me initially, they'll go, I want to jump in this division, or I want to jump this high. And I challenge them. I'm like, okay, um, Well, I know you've developed and been trained to develop goals like that. I'm like, do they bring you happiness? And they're like, no, it actually creates a lot of grief. And I'm like, yes,
Mm,
let's talk about finding like that flow, that freedom, that joy. And yes, the meters can be your goal, but it's really just the feeling that you're chasing. It's not the height, it's a feeling of like what that feels like, because the meters are different than jumping the 0.80s or the meter 20s.
yeah.
Um, so to answer, I think, yeah, I agree with, I think we have the same idea of what freedom or what success looks like and feels like. And with Instagram and social media, it's easy to get lost in that idea of this is what,
Comparison game is real.
yes, so real.
I feel like I kind of had a shift this year, and I don't really know. Well, maybe it's part of it's being pregnant with my first child. I don't know if it was that or just, you know, the next phase of the path, but I was really questioning um, success and goals, especially in business, because we're sold this idea, oh, it has to be this big of a business, or it has to bring in this much revenue, or you have to make this much from your business for it to be
Success.
successful. And I got to a point and I'm like, okay, well, there is some reality, right? Like it has to do certain things in order to function and run and thrive. But I did really start questioning, okay, is this goal actually serving me and bringing me
Joy.
joy and more energy to put into the business, or is it causing me more anxiety and frustration where I want to retract and retreat? And that's part of why I started doing this and some other projects that don't necessarily drive money or dollars, but they build connection and they actually really fuel and feed me. And then I'm able to put more in to other parts of the business and create connections with other women and just things that actually
Enjoy.
do this for me versus mm, or get
I,
me ragey, you know.
yeah, okay. Just listening to you, I want to change my definition of success to thrive, because
Okay.
I actually have like a lot of material for a Thrive group, but I love that you just said that and applied that to your business, because that's something that a lot of people don't share. I wonder about that, about when I see brands and work with clients and people I follow on Instagram and things. But what you just said is, like you said, is stuff that we don't talk about, we don't share. That it's not normalized. That perspective is not normalized.
Well, it's vulnerable too because there's ebbs and flows and seasons. And again, that comparison piece, everything looks bigger and shinier online than I am coming to learn that I think it is.
Yes.
But really trying to kind of focus inward for me on what is it that actually brings me more of that aliveness and
Mhm.
excitement and focus on that. And then hopefully that gives me the fuel to navigate some of the other things in particularly with business that are more challenging or just require a little bit more effort.
Yeah, it's I follow a lot of female entrepreneurs and their brands, and I won't name them, but they're based out of Los Angeles, and I was really shocked at their growth. And I thought it was self-funded, because a lot of times people don't
Mm,
disclose and they'll impersonate that idea. Then later did more research, found out they weren't self-funded. And I was like, okay, there was just exponential growth. And I have this, and then I have another brand I and I think that too, that transparency to help people understand how to build and how things can be created. And then later also in following them, I found out that one of the founders gets really, really sick
mm,
often. And that too crushed my heart because I was like, oh, like I love their branding. I love what they stand for, but then all of this is happening behind the scenes. And that's the stuff that worries me. That's where a lot of my clients come from. They're
Right.
struggling because they've overburnt themselves out by trying to be something that they're not, that they can't be. Like that's not normal.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, it's like having the facade or the look be a certain thing and then living something totally different here and having that disconnect from what is actually authentic and
Right.
manageable and feels good
Yes.
are two different things, but it's tricky.
It's really tricky. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's what also gets me about school is that there's no classes on how to get through health wise, mentally and heart wise and financially, like all these like lifestyle, just how do you survive life? Like there needs to be classes on this. Not that science or algebra don't matter in art, but this is also really important. Like we don't teach these skills. And so people create these survival habits that end up
Yeah.
then, you know, creating illness in their bodies.
My
So
mom always said she's like, if I were to, do something different than what she does, she's like, I would start an art of living school or,
mm,
have those classes in school, which is basically what you're talking about. Some of it practical, like
yeah.
she always said things like writing a check or,
Yes.
mailing a letter, but also just on a more emotional intelligence, body intelligence level
Yeah.
too, like learning how to integrate all of that into our life for more fulfillment and more, I don't know, yeah, freedom, like you were talking about.
Well, I mean, I think that's why our sport, being equestrians is harder than any other sport is because all that lifestyle stuff falls on each rider in so many ways because
Mm-hmm.
it's a self-funded sport.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have coaches in the same way, like a workout coach, and like we find our trainers and we pay them, and then they also train our horses, and there's not this art of living conversation about how to be this athlete and a lifestyle and also partner with your horse and also learn how to, I mean, it's a big responsibility too to have to care for your partner. And I'm learning so much with my horse ownership. I feel like it's like never ending, never ending. I pull a layer and there's 10 more lessons
More,
to
yeah.
learn, you know?
I mean, I have a belief that most people want would like to be living a life that feels like what we're talking about,
Mm,
for whatever that is for them, that is purposeful and meaningful and free.
yeah.
Um, and I know you talk a lot about finding your why, and I'm curious how, like maybe someone has that's listening has this knowing of this desire, like they're like, yes, I want to feel like that in my life, but I don't even know where to start. What would you say to someone who's wanting to discover their why, which is really the root of, I don't know, that how this is all gonna grow.
Um, okay, there's so much here. One, I don't think you need to know your why right away. Like
Hmm.
your why evolves and it can be expansive with so many different components. It doesn't have to be a niche. And I think with the why, there's this idea too, it has to be so niche but we're multifaceted.
Hmm.
One thing can lead to another, like you're a designer, but you also do equestrian, but you also have a lifestyle attached to the brand and you're a mama to be, and like,
Yeah.
um, and so, yeah, I think I encourage people to chase a feeling, kind of like what you were talking about, and have that be the why for the moment. I think it's very, what I'm learning too is that we are really lucky as people who love horses, or love, like you love to design to, so it's odd to me, so many people have that cut off from them, and they do, like you said, they don't know their why, or they don't know. So just going, exploring and experiencing can be your why. Like
Mm-hmm.
Simon Sinek really like put that on the board, or out there with his speech and his book, Why. And I've read that book and I love it. But I think too, it's the step before that is self-discovery. Like just try things out, play around, and the why itself is always evolving. That's the other piece. People get very stuck. Well, this is my why. Well,
I love
maybe,
that idea that it's evolving.
yeah, because it
Like takes the
doesn't.
pressure off to like pinpoint what it is.
Yes, because you're not the same person that you were a month ago. You just can't
Yeah.
be. And if you want to manifest, and this is a piece that I also work on with people, you have to start acting like the person you want to manifest. So if you want to be, you want to go from 50, like let's just use money because it's easier, 50K to a millionaire. That's a big leap, but it's doable. You have to start asking yourself questions. What would that millionaire think and experience and try to create? And I guarantee you it would be freedom and like space and creativity, um not the Ferrari. I
Yeah.
know it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. It's
uh,
more of those intangible
yeah,
things versus the mm, just the
tangible.
things that we acquire.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, how did you find your why?
Well, I think I felt like an exhale when you said it can be ever evolving because I was like, oh yeah, because I think I had a lot of pressure on myself for a while trying to, especially when I started my business, like what's the why? What's the why? And I didn't really know. I mean, I knew um, when I applied for design school at 16, in my essay, I wrote that I wanted to have an equestrian brand that made all women feel beautiful. So I
Mm,
think at that time that was a why. Um, and maybe a why when I started the brand, but that has also evolved into, okay, well, feeling beautiful is really actually not my goal.
yeah.
It's feeling alive and purposeful and um, connected and free, that kind of uninhibited sense of self.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's still evolving. Like maybe that's clear for the brand, but for myself, as I go into a new phase, that's also changing too. So I just felt a big sort of exhale. They're like, oh yeah, even right now,
Yeah.
even if I am clear on what my why has been, it also can continue to shift and change.
Yeah. And it has to. It's a living, I think it's a living organism, just like we are.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, it's all of it is, yeah, it's just life. It's funny the way it works. It's always, there's just so much out there, and horses really just, gosh, their magic just really, really makes you face that. Like it's in your face. There's no running away from your why when you're around horses.
totally. I think I maybe told you, but I put my horse down in February. He was almost 29 and had him for 21 years. We
Wow.
were partners since I was 12. And so that's also been like, I think part of shifting. It's like, oh wow, this being that has really been my other hand in so
Yeah.
many ways is is not there anymore. And it's like, oh, okay, what do you do when there's an empty space,
Hmm.
without just trying to fill it with something else to kind of take its place? But it's like, oh, what's the opportunity there for a bigger why, or a
Mhm.
bigger exploration when there's all that empty space. That was sort of unrelated to what we were talking about, but it the conversation took me there in my head.
No, I think actually a lot about you in that experience because I remember you posted it and it was such an intimate, wasn't it was an intimate post. It wasn't what you normally posted.
Yeah.
Uh, and I saw that and I wondered what that would be like for me too, just thinking about that. And I think too, what loss has, at least for me, and I'm sure for you too, and talking about that empty space, is uh, I search a lot for meaning in that empty space at a level I've never searched for before. And I don't know if it's age, but yeah, it's a loss brings, I've learned a lot of gifts and blessings from those moments. So I mean, it sticks with you forever and ever. But yes, yeah, I thought about you a lot about that. Sorry.
Okay. I think you talked a little bit, I mean, you talked a little bit about it over the conversation, but um, how would you say specifically in someone's riding or relationship to horses does this work serve them? Because the more I'm hearing you talk, like when I would hear someone say, I'm hiring a mindset coach, I would imagine them being kind of a high performing athlete.
Mhm.
Um, but from hearing you talk, that's not necessarily your entire client base. So how would you say for someone who's maybe not, a Grand Prix rider or something, that wants to cultivate um, more of that sense of thriving with their horse, how does this work sort of support them?
Oh my goodness. Yes. So much. Like uh I'm just like going through my Rolodex of everyone I talk to. Yeah, I have the 5-star to the juniors to women who are searching for their significant others and
When you
to
say significant others, you mean actual romantic partners, not their
yeah, horses.
equestrian partner.
But actually that is a big one too. Let me tell
I
you.
was like, I should clarify that because I was like, I'm not sure what she meant at the beginning. Is it
But
partner?
But the horse one, we talk a lot about that with every single equestrian I work with. And the thing is, my work goes out of the saddle too so much because I think really what we end up doing is like searching our conversations, the elevated piece comes from how do you how do you become your best performing self so that you can be that in the saddle, because
Mm, hmm.
saddle, like we're always presented with challenges. It's probably, I think, and I'm biased, but I think it's one of the most humbling sports because it's very spontaneous and there's very many serendipitous moments. And all those are like vulnerable moments. It's not like you graduate from doing one division to the next division, like in soccer, you'll like play the teams harder and harder and harder until, and ours just doesn't work that way because we also have a partner that has physical ailments and emotional ailments and needs. And so my work is really about how to find relief in their symptom and the challenge. And then through that relief, how can they like find the space to activate the performance pieces behind the
Mm,
mindsets that they can't activate when they're in the pain or the grief or the self-blame. So yes, it is about me shifting their mind and their perspective, but it's to get them to see like that there's so many layers to their beingness. Because if I just work with your mindset and teach you basic cognitive behavioral therapy techniques, which are I am sad to I am feeling, I'm feeling better when I walk, or I feel healthier today. That was a terrible example, everyone, but
I mean, I
it's
think of an easy, like to me, I feel scared
Mhm.
um, with certain things around horses because, that kind of a thing I imagine mind, like normal mindset or what you're talking about, behavioral cognitive therapies could help you shift out of the thought process of fear, but it's not going to actually eliminate the fear
and
in the body or the other parts of your being.
I'm actually not eliminating. I'm just teaching you
Mm,
their cues that something's amiss, and it might not be that jump. It might not be that thing about that horse. It might be that you're not listening because you're exhausted and you're overworked, or you're in too many after school activities, or the the place you're training at is just not a safe fit. So that's where I feel like the mindset piece, I really start getting people curious instead of the like, oh, but it's me. Like, what is
mm,
wrong with me? Why am I now suddenly having these thoughts that I'm going to fall off when you just saw someone 2 days ago fall off and they broke their collarbone?
mm,
Um, that may not be fully the trigger, but it may have been enough to trigger all your past experiences that you haven't been able to integrate and
mm, mhm.
process. And so your body just needs to like learn how to get that out. Like horses, when they get scared, they run, and then they're fine because then they put their head down and they start eating.
Yeah,
But stay
we're
in
not,
it.
like I'm still emotionally running.
Yes. Yes, me too. So I mean, I do it too. Like it's crazy. I'll just like just so people know, like this is normal. I started developing, so my horse started stopping at blue fences. And so of course, like my story around these blue fences was strong. I could have written a novel about how we could not jump blue fences, and went to this other trainer who's like, I have no problem helping you through this. And then he's like, your horse is colorblind. The issue is you.
Dang it.
And I was like, so are you going to add mental health to my bill too now?
Oh my
So,
gosh.
but yeah, I mean, like it, I had to learn a lot.
Since you share that, I'll share mine because I still have a nemesis. It's ditch walls. I had, when I was doing upper level eventing, I had two rotational falls with my horse at a ditch wall or ditch walls. And then, other issues around them after that. There were never a problem before the first fall.
Yeah.
But to this day, like if I thought about going out and jumping cross country, which I haven't done for a long time at this point, but that is the one thing I think about. I'm like, as long as it doesn't have a ditch wall,
Yes.
it's still
It,
so ingrained despite how many positive experience we had after,
mhm.
despite having no interest in actually doing it. It's like I can feel myself activated and like in that fight or flight sort of body response just thinking about it. I'm sweaty.
I know. And it's so crazy that and it's only simply because that moment was more charged than all the positive ones. So then your body just remembered
Yeah.
it. It's like
Yeah.
so, oh yeah. But now we have no problems at blue, but fences. But and I'm sure you would be fine at ditches, and but it's just crazy, all of it. And it's
Yeah.
people give up, and that's what the piece is so
Yeah.
sad when they're really don't need to.
Yeah.
So
And starting to sort of wrap up the conversation, what would you, if you had one thing to leave the audience with that they could sort of implement or integrate into sort of their daily life to kind of start to shift those patterns and belief systems, what would it be?
So one, I would start a gratitude journal, and every day write down 10 things that you are appreciative of, not grateful, because there's a lot of judgment behind the idea of gratitude. And so if you do it about appreciation, it's softer and you're more open to so many different experiences. So I would say that, and do that.
Can you describe the difference between what you mean when you say gratitude versus appreciation?
Gratitude, it's like more materialistic. Like people get very
Mm,
materialistic. Like it has to be something that happened, an event, or whereas appreciative, like I'm appreciative of this conversation. I'm appreciative of like the sun
mhm.
outside today. Uh,
Yeah, okay.
I'm appreciative of that one person that let me in when I was trying to yield, or I'm appreciative of my horse and his knickers, like things like that.
Yeah.
Um, because that really changed. That's how I started, and that changed everything. And then I started getting really protective of my space, especially riding. So this is for my equestrians or anyone else. Before my lessons, because I wanted to learn quickly and evolve quickly, because I started later. I rode my entire life, but I really started showing later in life.
Mhm.
Um, I wouldn't answer phone calls no matter who they were, best friend, moms, an hour before my lesson or on my drive. Um, and because you just don't know what mood they're going to be in or
Yeah.
what's going on. So I really, and in that time, I would really like focus on just being really present, like counting trees. I know that sounds weird, but like really like getting really connected to the here and now, because we always are future bound or we're past bound.
Mm-hmm.
And horses are very present, like they live in the present. So that helped create my connection. And then I found that I was a faster learner. And it also helped me face those moments that you and I just talked about, you with the ditch, me with the blue fence, with greater grace and ease. Like it wasn't that they aren't hard, but I can I can step out of my thoughts in those moments and listen to my trainer and trust that they will get me to the next. So it primes me to be really more effective with my aids.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so those are the two things I think. And I think just the other thing too, podcasts are exceptional. Like when you're in a mood and can't get out of it, have someone else do the work for you. Let them change your mindset or
Mm.
your mind or the flavor of your life experience mood by just listening to a podcast that makes you laugh or is about mindset or money or whatever else.
Yeah,
So,
I love
so
that.
yeah, those would be my three, I think.
I think the not answering the phone is like such a big one because I notice myself doing the same thing, like maybe with emails too. Like I'm actually not going to check my email right before I'm going to do something important, whether it's writing or not. It's like not looking at messages, which are normally great, but just on the off chance that something sparks a little bit of that
Yes.
inside, and then that's what you're carrying into what you're trying to go and do is something really present and nurturing.
Yes. And like we talked about this earlier about also what women present themselves with, what I see really. And that ties into it is we're a vessel, and women especially, we're very
Mm,
empathic, and our power is to be a vessel. But we haven't learned how to be a vessel while also um, staying in our own power.
mhm.
So people vampire their energy onto you, other females and males and kids and adults, it doesn't matter. But a lot of, especially horse people, I feel like, because they're all usually very empathic and very attuned. Um, and so then people will use through email or through text or through phone calls, use that energy to help. them feel better, but then we feel worse. And so then we
Yeah.
feel worse. And then it's like, no.
No,
Uh,
this was not the goal.
yeah. So yeah, I love that you said that because it's that's part of the reason why I don't check texts or emails, or you can simply say I'll call you back or put a notification now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The way I'm sort of ending these conversations is asking if you have a like a big picture dream that you're sort of walking towards, because I'm a big believer in sort of championing and holding one another in those dreams and speaking them out loud when sometimes we're like, that's too big of a dream. I don't want to actually share that. So I'm curious, is there a big dream that you'd like to share that we as in me and the people listening could sort of hold and,
I,
champion and uplift you in?
I like need to come to you for sessions. You have some amazing questions. Um, I've never been asked that question and I always ask it.
That's
So,
amazing.
um, oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, I mean, oh gosh. See, I'm nervous.
Sweaty
'Cause
palms kick in.
yes, my
But
heart
it's
rate.
true, it's a vulnerable thing. Like I know that there are certain dreams that I've had that I'm like, oh, I shouldn't share them until I'm at least close. And so that's why I love asking this question, because I feel like, we get to sort of open up and show other people that are listening that it's like, yeah, we all have these dreams that maybe feel too big for us, but we still get to hold them.
I love it. And I'm trying to integrate how to say this. Because yeah, I would love to um I would love to impact more and more people. I know I keep myself from that energy sometimes because I'm afraid of what that would look like. But the dream, and I'm afraid of this dream, I have to say it, because, and it is big. Like, not to be necessarily Tony Robbins or anything like that, but big where I can have like a bigger impact on other women. My niche is females. I'm really, really passionate about our experience in life. Um, and just helping so many people as much as I can through social media and all that, and having yeah, just having that experience. And then also I think my other biggest dream that I don't share very often, but I've always wanted to be a really good rider and compete uh, in the meter 20s. Like that's like, I don't know why like the meter 20s or above or lower. And just, I've gone close. Um, but just to be effective in that arena and feeling that flow. And when I've jumped it, it felt like literally I was flying in the clouds. And I think I'm just searching for that experience again. But I just really want to want to show that's my other dream. I think that's why I spend all my money on hay. Um, but those are my two, yeah, to really impact other women and I'm really passionate about that. So
Thank you for sharing. I know that sometimes it can be a little like, can't
yeah.
make me.
It's just like, yeah, because you feel like a little silly, and I'm definitely sweating, like, let me tell you. But yeah, and also because it feels like so far away, but then, you know, yeah, those are, yeah. So that's
I love
it.
it.
Yeah.
Well, I truly have loved this conversation. I'm I feel like I'm gonna
Me too.
get off the call and be like, feeling lots of things for a while.
Yeah, me too.
I'd love for you to share where when people can find you, and then maybe just a little bit more specifics about the services that you offer,
Okay.
and how people could maybe work with you if they're hearing this, like, okay, I knew I wanted something. This is speaking to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really easy to find on Instagram. Dr. Pernilla Nathan, Pernilla. But yeah, it's easier just to find me on Instagram. And what I offer is I do different packaging. So I offer like an intensive if you want to work on just one thing and get it done. Maybe you're horse showing or you have a important due date for work or whatever it is. And then I have a single session for people who want to get their feet wet. And then my ideal way I love working is a 5 session package, and which is the most popular because you get me literally like it's concierge, because I really believe if I don't have access to you in the moment when you're going through your most difficult times through text or for a last minute session, because I'm not doing therapy, I'm literally doing optimization. So I want to see you, I want to hear you when you're not feeling your best self or you're struggling, because that's when I can tweak and do all the work, my best work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so for that 5 session, it's a year. And what ends up happening is I'll see people like the first week and then maybe the next week, and then they'll find their flow. And that's what I want. I want them to go through their flow. We'll text, we'll say hi, check-ins, and then maybe 2 months later, they're at another point where they're elevating and going through a challenge, but they just need another perspective again. So we go
Mm-hmm.
do our third session. Because with therapy, you have your assigned time and date, but life doesn't work that way.
No,
So,
it does not.
so I've had, the texts or the calls. Do you have time today? Yes. Like that's what I'm here for. And I
Yeah.
love it. Um, so sometimes I'll be like, I'm at a horse show, but I'm going in my car. We'll talk, or and they understand that, like they're in the same boat.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of what I do. So that can all be found on my Instagram page. There is a website, Dr. Pernilla Nathan too, where I share even more stuff. And then I'm on medium.com where I publish articles. So yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for the time and your heart, really. Like I feel you, and it was really nice to connect and go a little bit deeper than even I was sort of expecting.
Oh, well, thank you. I loved this. And I am so grateful. I had so much fun with you. So,
Same. Like,
yes.
let's just get on a call next week.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh,
I truly, truly appreciate it. And I love, love, love everything that I've been able to wear and have enjoyed it so much. So I know everyone speaks highly about your brand and you. So yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Hannah. Okay, bye.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of Behind the Barn Door. If you loved this conversation, be sure to hit subscribe and sign up for our mailing list on hannahchildslifestyle.com to stay on track with our next guest and hear more about upcoming community events. See you next time.